I think as parents, we have all seen the worst in our children, but also we do see the best in them, and we are the first ones to be able to say what our kids' strengths are. But I think they will only know that and see that in themselves if the people around them who love them remind them of that.
Welcome to Separate Bathrooms. My name's Brahe-Daddo.
Daddo.
Daddo is my wife.
That's right.
We've been doing a few episodes of this now.
We have. Yeah, thanks for coming back to the bathroom. You might be new, but thanks for coming back if you're coming back.
We're very appreciative for our long-time listeners.
Very appreciative.
And grateful for our new listeners.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Today we are talking with an author. Her name is Daisy Turnbull. She wrote a book called 50 Risks to Take with Your Kids. It's a guide to building resilience and autonomy in children up to the age of 10. I've not seen that book. I've seen her new book. She's the mother of two. She's got a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old. She's a teacher with over 10 years' experience teaching teenagers. She's also a lifeline counsellor.
Her new book, 50 Questions to Ask Your Teens, is a guide for parents and carers navigating the confusing, isn't it, and exciting world of adolescence. We are in the thick of it ourselves. So for anyone who wants to better connect with their teens and help them to be functioning, self-aware and kind adults, this book is a ripper.
Yes, our book is full of pieces of paper of marked pages and chapters. It's really good. Let's welcome Daisy. We have probably 50 questions to ask Daisy about teenagers, so let's bring her in.
Welcome, Daisy Turnbull, into the bathroom. Nice to meet you via podcast, Daisy.
Lovely to meet you too.
We have been, the topic of your book has been rather large in our house. We actually had it sitting on our dining room table, and our teenager walked by and went, "What is this?"
No, she didn't. She went, ugh.
Oh no, I'm going to get asked all these questions.
Yeah, right? Did you buy this? And I said, no. I said, we was sent it and we've been reading it and we're really excited to talk to Daisy about this tomorrow because it was yesterday. So I mean, I don't even know where to begin. There's so many questions. It's like, where do we start?
Well, what about what made you want to write the book?
What made me want to write the book? It's funny, a lot of people when they write, they talk about feeling a lot more nervous about writing the second book than the first book because of, the expectation. But for me, I actually felt more confident writing this book than the first book because teenagers and teaching teenagers is what I've, been working in for over 10 years. The first book, which was about kids age up to 10, it was kind of like I had to get that done to... The idea was get them, what do I want a year 7 student to look like when they start at school and when I kind of get to know them. With this book, it was like, I know these topics because these are conversations I've been having for a very long time.
Right.
So in some ways it was like I wanted to write this book first.
How was your life as a teenager?
I was, I think, pretty well behaved. I've always had a really good relationship with my parents, and to be honest, one of the things that I think comes through in this book is have always had great conversations with them, and they've always been the parents that are happy to chat and keep chatting after dinner. I'm still best mates with some of the girls I was at school with, and actually my best friend Melissa was around the other day, and we were talking about it, and she said, yours was the house where after dinner we didn't always jump up from the table to run upstairs. We kind of kept talking with your parents. I think, much like in any TV show, there's that scene where everyone congregates, like whether or not it's, Central Perk in Friends or the diner in Seinfeld. It was often my place. Like I often had friends around. Mum and Dad were always happy for me to have friends around and always got along with my friends. So that was really good. But I would say this, and Mel and I were talking about it the other day. She's kind of like my fact checker and has a much better memory about what we did as teens than I do. I changed friends in year 10, at the end of year 10, and I it's funny, I didn't talk about that in the book, but I do think it's something for parents to know, because teens do often change friendship groups, and that's something I did. I changed to a kind of politely more studious but honestly more nerdy group of girls, and we all wanted to get into, you know, tough uni courses, and we all worked really hard, and that's kind of the group I moved into at the start of year 11.
Oh, that's really interesting. That's heartening, actually, because we've just sent our year 10 girl to a brand new school. And so she's left behind a social group that was really toxic, which is why we pulled her from the school she's at. So to hear that this could be this is what we want for her. You know, we want a whole new social group that's kind and empathetic and friendly. So that's what we're hoping.
And that's so good, because I think that year 10, year 11 is the perfect time for teens. They recalibrate, they figure out what their priorities are, and that's when they do often change friendship groups.
Yeah. Okay, good. All right, we're on the right track.
Can I ask you, just on that note, was there fallout from the group that you left?
Oh God, well, we were all like 15. No, I feel like that group, what was interesting, and I do think I do talk about this in the book, there's always a difference between a group and the individuals in a group. And much like, and I talk about that great scene in To Kill a Mockingbird where Scout calls out Mr. Cunningham, you know, I think I probably wasn't friends with the group, but I stayed friends with individuals in the group. And then I think I've reconnected with some of them at uni, but, you know, to be fair, it was a lot easier. We're talking 2000, 2001. We didn't have Facebook or social media or anything. But, it was the right decision for me, and I'm really grateful to the amazing girls I made friends with in year 11.
Ah, okay.
Do you think that kids don't meet the same way that we did? I mean, you're talking about 2000 that you came up. Elle and I came up through the 80s, so there certainly was no technology. I think fax machine was our technology at that point. But it was really incumbent upon us to go up to the person you're attracted to start and engage a conversation. But so here you've got social media, I think, creating this issue where kids aren't engaging as much face-to-face, and then you throw COVID on top of that. Do you think that's exacerbated the whole thing?
Absolutely. So look, what the pandemic did is it amplified and exacerbated any existing issues. Yeah. And social media was a huge one. And one of the issues with social media, like you say, is firstly all of the body image and the self-image stuff, especially with teenage girls, but also, the way people interact. We forget that when you talk or you type into a screen, there is someone on the other side of that screen. And I often say to students, and I write in the book, don't write anything that you wouldn't want to see on the cover of the Sydney Morning Herald, as we have all seen in some text message exchanges recently.
Yeah.
Indeed.
And I think the thing around dating is really interesting as well, because the dating stuff, you've got social media, you've also got porn, and you've got that more students in Australia go to single-sex schools, so they're not actually interacting in ways that don't really, that other than ones that replicate a nightclub. And so, these parties or dances, or even, if school organised dances, that's how they're interacting. So they're not kind of organically, even they're not getting public transport to school. So they're not even meeting people on the bus or the train and chatting to people on the way to or from school. And then you've got this idea that is being created and perpetuated in pornography about the denigration of women and sex being something that is done to women. They're not taking part in it. And it's very, it removes all dignity from women. And that's what a lot of teen boys are watching and is becoming normalised, and they're expecting sex to be like. And then they're meeting, girls, and I understand right now we're very heteronormative right now, but they're meeting girls, and the girls, even to the fact that the girls don't really have Dolly Doctor or Girlfriend Sealed sections as much anymore. So their information they've got a lot less information, and the boys have a lot more bad information. And then you've got social media and the way they interact on social media, and it's a really messy situation. It's a very toxic situation.
So as a parent, I've discovered my son's watching porn. How do I talk to him about that?
So as a parent, you say, I know you're watching porn, and I'm not telling you to stop watching porn. What I want you to do is understand that porn isn't real. And I want you to know that what's happening in porn is not how sex is or how sex should be or what, women expect. And one of the things with porn, and I talk about it in the book as like the Game of Thrones effect, like it started off, we were really freaked out by a bit of violence, but by the end of that series, we were just used to seeing whole cities destroyed. Yeah, and absolutely. That's why so much porn now is around really weird fetishes, because normal porn is effectively boring. And what happens with teenage boys, especially watching porn, is they develop a connection between being obviously turned on and having a shame reaction as well. And so they go, I know it's bad to watch it, but I enjoy watching it. And obviously I, masturbate while I watch it. And so they're connecting kind of pleasure and shame. And I think that's a really dangerous place to get to, because that's not, that's not what we want sex to be like. And I think when you add on the fact that a lot of parents aren't talking to kids about sex because they're expecting schools to do it, it gets quite tricky.
Yep. Do you think there should be a better, greater, more explicit program in our schools around sexuality?
Absolutely. And I think that's starting to happen. I think Chanel Contos really started a huge change there. The school I was at last year, we had Brent Sanders, who comes and talks to students about consent. He's starting to talk to a year group younger than 2 year groups younger than he used to, and he's coming back. We also had Marie Crabb. Marie Crabb runs an organisation called It's Time We Talked, and she talked to our parents. I do think with pornography, though, the conversation needs to happen to the parents, and then the parents do what they want with that, because every parent has a different value system and a different way of talking about sex. So if a school comes in and says porn is not real and, sex should be better than that, if you've got parents that are maybe very conservative or very progressive, they might take something away from that and feel that that conversation was taken away from them. That's why I think parents have to be, the first and final word on this stuff.
That's the trick of how to get everybody on the same page.
And I don't think you can get them all on the same page. I think that the words might be the same, but the script will be very different and the way it's played out will be very different for different families, which is why I've tried to not say to parents, this is exactly how you have this conversation. It's one of the reasons, other than the fact that I already had 50, I didn't talk about drugs and alcohol in the book, because firstly, I do think schools do that really well. PDH or PE does it really well, and there are great speakers that talk to schools about it, but also parents have different relationships with this, and they need to do that.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting topic too, going back to sexuality and sex. And I think, I'm a teacher myself, and there needs to be an education around just little moments and images and the words that we use to our children. I know that with our daughter, the male PE teacher talked about for the swimming carnival that the girls had to wear a one-piece swimsuit and a rash vest because otherwise it was too hard for the boys to concentrate. And in itself says something that the girls need to change who they are and what they want to wear because it's going to excite the boys. And my daughter came back and said, why?
Yeah. And it also builds in that idea of boys can't control themselves and we don't expect them to.
Yeah.
It's really hard. And then, I've had conversations with friends who have teenage daughters and they want to buy, very revealing bikinis and they feel uncomfortable around that, but like body positivity versus, and nothing a girl wears means she deserves any negativity or any terrible thing to happen to her. Like the whole, what was she wearing thing, that we all know that is wrong. And yet that underlies a lot of conversations we have with teenagers in many ways, and a lot around body image. And so it is kind of becoming aware of that as well.
Getting back to the book, there's so much relatable help that you've written about for us parents. This one caught my attention because I think every parent goes through so much of this. You say becoming a teenager who wants to individuate from their parents is normal and natural, but it doesn't mean they get to disrespect you. Actually, it's a bit of a dance that has been going on since teenagers started hanging out together on the porches of their caves. I love that. Step 1, teenager says to parent, I want to go to the party. Parents say no. Teen starts to rebel. Parent gets stricter. Repeat steps 3 and 4 for a few years until the parent has no authority. Oh. Right? Help us, Daisy, with this one.
We're on number 3. We still haven't figured it out.
Different kids. We've just, all 3 of our kids are so different. But our third one is and I love her because she's a rebel. I love that about her. And yet it's like, oh God, we got to stop her. But she's like, I'm going to climb out the window anyway.
Yeah, exactly. It's really hard because you want to have this conversation before they're wanting to sneak out the window and go to a party.
Yeah.
So it's about developing trust and responsibility earlier. So it could be even when they're as young as like 10 or 11, you know, trusting them to go to the shops, trusting them to walk to their friend's house, trusting them that they will come back when they say they will, you know, all of that, and then building that out. And it's not that you don't trust your daughter. It's that you don't know that she trusts herself. Like you don't know that you don't know that she knows that she will do the right thing if something happens. So it's like, if something bad happened, would you call us?
Yeah.
And more importantly, if she called you, would you pick her up from the party, drive her home, get her into bed, and not be judgy at all until the next day?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the pickup from the party at 2 a.m. is not a learning moment.
Yeah.
It's the next day is, you know, so it's that kind of thing. I do think, you know, every teenager, or probably even 12-year-old, is faced with a McDonald's tray and a hill, or a McDonald's trolley and a hill. And whether or not they stop and think before they go down that hill, or they, you know, or they actually just go down that hill, is based on whether or not they've had the chance to figure out that stuff on their own. So it kind of has to be this conversation going, okay, well, if you are going to sneak out the window anyway and you are going to go to this party anyway, can we come up with what the solutions are going to be if you get into certain situations?
Yeah.
You know, would she be happy sharing her location with you on WhatsApp for the time she's at the party? Maybe as a way to build trust.
Yeah.
And then would she be okay texting you at 11:30 or midnight? Would she be okay, you know, because just checking in so you know she's okay?
Yeah. Yeah, we're there with her now doing that, which is great.
Yeah.
Yeah, every time she moves to a different location, I'm now going here. Plus, I can track her on my phone.
I was going to say,
which
Ali's
is
got
great.
that phone app where she's able to see where she is.
And Bodhi knows that. She knows
she knows she's on.
She has it.
Because also, Daisy, she's actually told us that she's given us the warning that she said, I don't know if I can not partake in some of the things that her friends do. I don't know that I can do that. And so I was like, oh, thank you for saying that. Thanks for telling us that info, because I think it got a lot of her shoulders as well too.
So then it's like, how do we support her, right, to make better choices? Yeah.
And what is her relationship going to be at those parties? Like, is she going to, you know, drink or whatever it is they're doing? And how will she feel about that? And will she tell you if it goes badly?
Yeah,
well, I think she has. I think she's really she's been out to a few parties now where she's made the choice not to engage, which has been really good, because prior to that she's had some moments which have been pretty full on. Climbing out the window, kick that box.
Yeah,
Daisy, you talk about being careful of gender norms. Can you explain that?
There are so many underlying gender norms that we just accept. And actually, I can't remember if I put it in this book or the first book, but when my son was born, everyone said he looked strong and he was like, he'd been here before. And when my daughter was born, everyone was saying she looked chubby and cute. And literally the adjectives that we use to describe children are different by gender. And I think that as parents, yeah, maybe you're very comfortable with that and that's fine. But maybe it's about being aware of it. So is your daughter's job to unpack the dishwasher and your son's job to take the bins out, and your daughter's job to do the laundry and your son's job to sweep the courtyard, and your daughter's job to, I don't know, make the beds, and your son's job to wash the car. That stuff all feeds into a very gendered idea of how the mental load should be shared. And we know that in, relationships and marriages, the mental load is a huge issue. We know that men that do more housework get more sex.
Do they?
Because there's less resentment going around.
What can I say? What can I say?
I gotta do more house.
I've been saying this.
Right? Oh,
30 years, Daisy.
And you're finally figuring it out now. Oh, honey.
Yeah, so these are things to start not even talking about, but checking yourself with your kids.
Yeah.
My daughter had a day where she didn't want to wear a dress, and I was kind of like going, "Oh, just wear a dress." And I was like, "Why do I need her to wear a dress? Why?" That is, and it's in a weird way, it's all about like performing for the male gaze one way or another, whether or not it's putting a little kid in a dress or a teenager wanting to be in a bikini or the teacher saying they have to be in rash vests. It's all about this kind of how we're performing for the male gaze one way or another.
So true. You've also got, you have it, as your sixth question in your book. And it's a question I would never think to ask, but I love it because I would like to be asked this as well as a 52-year-old. You write, how big do you want your world to be?
Yeah, I really loved writing that one because I started it with my grandmother.
Really? Yeah, that's right. You started the chapter talking about your grandmother. Can you explain to us what that means?
Well, this question of how big do you want your world to be it's about curiosity and about awe, And I think, I talk about my grandmother because, she was on cruise ships and remembers World War II and travelled the world and had sons who were like elite surf lifesavers. So spent her weekends driving up and down the coast to different, nippers things. And her life was huge. And she's, 94 and she lives in her house on her street, and it's a very small life now, but it started at such a big place, and I just think I wanted to honour that. But I do think the thing about it is obviously travel is a thing we haven't done much of recently, and we want our teens to be curious adults and to be able to participate in awe, and there is not much in their bedrooms or on their computers that is awesome. We all know it is far more amazing to see the Golden Gate Bridge than to see a photo of the Golden Gate Bridge on your screen. And whether or not your kids can travel or even finding awe in small moments in a park or at a beach or whatever it is, I think it's important to talk to teenagers about that ability to seek awe and wonder and let the world be bigger than them.
Ali just mentioned that question, how big do you want your world to be? Another one is, what is your strength? A question to ask your teen. You wrote, although you get to see the worst of your children, remember they will only see the best in themselves if you do. Can you explain that?
Well, I think as parents, and we are recording this on, for me, the last day of school holidays. My son's already at school. My daughter's going to start tomorrow. So we have all seen the worst in our children. But also we do see the best in them, and we are the first ones to be able to say what our kids' strengths are. So, I can tell you that my son is a great critical thinker. He's a great reader. He is excellent at debating, which often translates to being very annoying, but he is really persistent. He is really persistent at things when he wants to learn to do something. So, whether it's scootering or skateboarding, he gets really persistent and he has those strengths. I can tell you that my daughter has this great imagination. She's very kind. She's very intuitive. But I think they will only know that and see that in themselves if the people around them who love them remind them of that. And there's a lot around strengths-based parenting. Lee Waters has a great book called Strength Switch. But that idea of saying to, my son, when he's not trying very hard at his homework, saying, hey, you're able to be really persistent when it comes to riding a scooter, so why don't you use that strength in this situation? But parents do get the worst of their kids, especially teenagers. So there's data that shows that the first relationships that fall by the wayside when teens are probably, 13, 14 is parents, and then it's teachers, and then it's friends, and then friends rebuild and teachers rebuild and parents rebuild. So we get the worst of them for the longest. But that ability to tell them that they are loved regardless and that you see strengths in them even when they're being their most annoying is the thing that gives them that inner strength.
When we get to that age where the teens are pushing us away, they're creating that distance, yet the teens are saying, well, I just feel like I'm stupid. I can't do anything. I'm terrible at school and I'm dumb. And the parents sort of going, you're not, we see how smart you are. But because there's a distance there and the child just goes, well, I don't believe you. I don't feel that way. Or how do you create the closeness again so the child does act? Will the child actually believe you even though there's the distance that's happened because they're in their teen years? How do you get them to actually believe in their strengths, I guess, is the question.
There are so many ways you can do that. So the first way is to say what you were saying, but say it authentically and not like it'll be fine. Like there's nothing worse than it'll be fine, you'll be sweet. Be like, look, I know you're really struggling at the moment, and I know at the moment this seems like the biggest thing, but this is, one assessment for year 9 maths or whatever it is, So try your hardest and learn from where you go wrong with it, and we'll come up with strategies for that. The other thing is to actually be vulnerable with your own kids and tell them about times where you feel like you've sucked at stuff.
Yeah.
And where you failed. I think often we do talk to kids about growth mindsets and resilience and it's okay to fail, but like how often do you say to your kids, I'm having a really crappy day, so we are having cheese on toast for dinner, and this happens sometimes, That's okay to say that.
As you're talking, I'm getting a text from our daughter. Did you see that come through? From Bodie. Hey, Dad, can I go to a friend's house instead of being picked up?
This is it. This is first day. All right.
Right. This is her first day of school. So I want to go, which friend? I'm going to do that. Which?
Ask Daisy. She might have some.
Just say, sure, that sounds great. Who's the friend? Respond positively first.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. What? Say that again.
So, sure, that sounds great. Who's the friend and where do they live?
Sounds great. Who's the friend? I love you, Daisy. This is great. And who's the friend?
It's going to have Daisy on speed dial from now on.
I know, right? Who's the friend and where do
you must
they
have this for... I mean,
live?
do you find that you have that, like, for anyone who's got a teen, or do you find that Daisy, can I just talk to you about this, Daisy? Because you are a wellness teacher as well, so...
Well-being.
Well-being, sorry, yeah.
A bit. I've had a few friends go more with the first book saying, oh, my God, I could not do these risks. Right. How do I do this?
Yeah.
Right. And then people saying, I did it and they didn't die. It was great and they loved it and it was really fun. So I haven't yet had it so much with the teen stuff. I've had good conversations with friends, teenagers. And I think that's the other thing that's really important is the benefit of villages for teenagers, like having more than just parents around. And I often feel, especially as a single mum, I sometimes worry, when I hang out with the kids with my parents, I'm like, am I watering, my time down with them by having my parents around? But they love it. Kids benefit from having lots of trusted adults. And so whether or not it's, my friends or aunts or uncles, having other people around, knowing they can go to them, that's great because they don't always want to go to you for everything. And nor would you want to go to your parents for everything when you were a teenager.
And there's nothing like a trusted adult that sort of says, hey, look, mate, the way you just spoke to Dad right then, that wasn't really kind. And they'll hear it often so much better than Dad going, hey, that didn't feel nice the way you spoke to me. I love that community around the children that will step in like that. It's so important.
Yeah.
All right, the phone question. Again, the bane of every parent of the last few years. How does your phone impact your relationship? How do we get them off our phones, Daisy?
Get off your phones first.
Yeah.
And I'm the worst. I'm the biggest hypocrite in saying that.
Yeah. I hear that. I hear you.
What are you doing on your phone, Daisy? What do you do on your phone? Is it Instagram,
I'm
Facebook?
WhatsApping. I'm texting friends. So I'm always in conversation. So this is what's interesting. I'm always in conversations with people.
Yeah.
and friends and, family and stuff. And often I'm organising play dates or that kind of thing. I'm on Instagram quite a bit, but I'm not like watching YouTube or something like that. Like I also think with phones, it's important to know that there are different types of phone use. Being on FaceTime is talking to a friend is a better use of your phone than scrolling YouTube. So firstly, know what they're doing on their phone, know what they're getting out of their phone. But it is that thing about you control your phone, not the other way around. So, I have one of those notifications, focus things on my phone now where it only pings if it's my parents or my kid's dad. And so other than that, I will not see any notifications so I can work. And I know that if something huge happens, I think I'll probably have to add the kids' school to that now that school's back. I know that I will find out and try and not use it. And that idea of consciously not using your phone for periods of time is important as well.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
I'm going to read this because one of our listeners has sent this. I have a son that is 13. I'm struggling with a few different things, from him walking around naked to him saying inappropriate stuff like mummy has big boobs. I'm really not sure what to say or what boundaries to put in place. This morning my son attempted to touch me on my breast. I told Dad, and my son then called me a snitch. Dad goes, when you have a girlfriend, you can touch breasts. Say what? She writes. This is not what I wanted to hear from Dad. I'm assuming Dad is her husband.
Yeah.
Right? I had said, in quotations, that's if she consents to being touched. How do we go about teaching teens boundaries and consent? Also, having the parents on the same page on what is appropriate and not appropriate to say, and teaching my son about what is and isn't snitching or dobbing someone in. There's a few different bits in there.
Yeah. There's so many things to unpack in that,
There
isn't there?
There is.
Like I do think so the idea of snitching, well, no, if you have had something bad happen to you, you have every right to tell someone that happened.
Yep.
Like that's fine. My kids are young, and I've started, they rumble and wrestle quite a bit, and I've started really reminding both of them that if Alice says stop, Jack has to stop immediately.
Yep.
So that if she is ever in a situation where she's telling someone else to stop and they don't, she can just go hell for leather to get herself out of that situation. Like she has to grow up knowing that when she says stop or no, it's immediately respected. And also Jack needs to know that if someone says stop, it's immediately respected.
Yeah.
It sounds like that kid is testing boundaries and finding out what they can and can't do.
Yeah, right.
And what they can and can't get away with. And so being really clear about that, and maybe having a conversation with them about actually what is consent and saying no and stopping something, I think a lot of, it will mean no then, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the whole relationship ends forever. Like there's a lot of stuff we need to talk to teens about around affirmative consent and checking. The TV show Normal People, based on the Sally Rooney book, covers consent really well, really beautifully. Like I think a lot of people, and it's funny talking to people a bit older than me, when I talk to them about the idea of affirmative consent, they go, that does not sound sexy at all. And I'm like, well, actually it is, and it can be, and it should be. Like this is not meant to be silent. And talking to kids about that. And the other thing that's really important to explain to teenage boys especially is this idea that coercion is not consent. And so I have explained it to my kids in the concept of, if they ask me for an ice cream 17 times and I say no, and then I end up giving in and giving them an ice cream, I actually did not consent to that. But when Brent Sanders comes and talks to schools, he says that, if you say no, yes, that is actually coercion, not consent.
Wow.
And especially with the new affirmative consent laws, if obviously it's all he said, she said, but if a woman can prove that she did communicate no multiple times, then that is not affirmative consent.
Boys are often told, she says no, that's okay, keep at her. You'll break her down, and until she says yes, that just might be her way. It's like, well, no, if she said no, she said no. That's the end of the story.
Yeah, and if she said no, and the other thing is, like, if you like this girl, if she says no, then stop and go do something else, and maybe next time she'll be, she will, the respect you pay her will be a positive for that relationship.
Yeah.
You know, but if you pressure her, then absolutely you will never hear from her again. And if you like this person, why are you wanting to treat them like that?
We had a gorgeous young fellow in our eldest daughter life that would ask her to be his girlfriend once every 6 months. And they were in the same class. And
she would say no.
She always said no. And she said, I just really want to be your friend. And they were still friends through that. And then 6 months would roll and he'd ask again. This kid is still one of her dearest friends. Like, he eventually stopped asking, but the friendship never changed. And I just loved that about him, and B, our daughter, that she could still say and still treat him as a friend, not shun him. But it was such a beautiful experience that she'd come home, she'd say, yep, Julian's asked me to be his girlfriend again. I'm like, I said no, just want to be friends, and so it's all good. It's like, all right, good stuff.
Yeah.
But that makes sense, right? Like, if he likes her, he likes all of her, and far better to be friends with her and be around her and part of her life than to not be there at all, because you couldn't have that one part of her that she didn't want to share.
Yeah.
Our listener question had a few different aspects or parts to it. One of them was for parents, how do we get on the same page?
So I think the thing with getting on the same page is interesting, because one of the things that I talk about in the book is the importance of talking about values rather than rules. And if you as a family, especially, even if you're separated and you're co-parenting or you're from different cultural backgrounds, if you decide that as a family you have the same values, then you can rely on them. So for things like that situation, that's where I would expect parents are saying, okay, well, what is our line here? And, mum may have said that or dad may have said that, but actually we've spoken to each other and our decision is, as a family, this. And I think if you decide one of your family values is respect, then you can say this is disrespectful or whatever it is. So I think going into the teenage years with some understanding of how you might deal with certain situations could be a good way to start. But also you are often going to be reacting and responding to situations as they come up.
Yeah. Daisy, your book, 50 Questions to Ask Teens, it's not your average teen self-help book. There's so much in here. I absolutely love it. I'm so grateful that you've written it. We will be using this book in our house a lot.
Thank you.
It's already dog-eared and bookmarked.
Look, we've got the bits in there.
Well, just to end up, this may be too hard to narrow it down, but are there 3 core things as parents we can start today that will not only help our teens, but the relationship we have with them? Would you say top 3?
So as questions, maybe not. That might be a bit harder. But I think talking to kids about how are you feeling rather than just are you okay, and asking them to really label their emotions is important. I think talking to them about who they are online is really important, because you want them to be who they are when they're online and when they're in the physical space. And kind of asking them about what do they want their relationship with you to look like, and how can you both get there is a really important one.
That's a ripper.
So good.
Thank you so much. Just a quick Bodhi update. She has not responded to
oh, damn it. Look, if she does, I'll give you my mobile number and you can send me a screenshot and we can workshop it from there.
I love it.
You'd think we're just first-time parents, but like Ali said, they're so different. Our kids
are so different.
Every kid is different, and to cookie cut them into one way to do it is not going to work.
And youngest are more rebellious because they kind of have had the other two to push the envelope for
That's
them.
right. That's right. Yeah.
Wow. Daisy Turnbull, thanks so much for joining us in the bathroom today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
I feel like I need to go back and redo my parenting of teens. No, actually that's not true. I shouldn't be so hard on myself. There's a lot of stuff that we've done that I'm really proud of, and there's things that we can implement now with our youngest. So really fascinating. Really, I'm so excited to read more of the book and implement more of what Daisy's written about.
Yeah, I'm glad that we still have a teenager to use the book.
Yeah,
the knowledge of the book. on, because clearly Lotus and River have outgrown it, though. What an incredible tool. I think about someone like David Campbell, who's got little kids. You know, there's so much good stuff
Yep.
for him and for other parents of younger kids
Yeah.
to utilise.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
It's really
I mean,
good.
even as, you know, you were talking about before, just learning about the difference between consent and coercion, you know, that's...
I'd never heard that.
Yeah, I hadn't heard it put like that either. But it makes sense to me now about how much you want me to play golf is actually coercion. So it's fine.
Wait a second. I don't. It's not
I've
every 5 minutes.
finally figured
No
it
way.
out.
It's not. It
You are
would be coercion if it was telling you every day. I'm just banging on like.
Oh, it's
like
not-
I've got one of my brothers does that. He'll just keep hitting you and hitting you and hitting you, and I go, "That's coercion." Now I have something to say to him.
Now you got it.
But
I've
no,
said no. I'm not playing golf.
I haven't brought it up for at least 6 months. In fact, you brought it up more than I have.
Yeah, now I know, but maybe that's why I felt resistant to it, is because it feels more like coercion. Anyway, no, it was great. It was great. Lots of good information from Daisy.
Thanks for tuning in.
If you've got any more questions,
Yes.
because that was such a ripper of a question from the listeners. So please, if you want to send us a question, our email is in the show notes. Anything about the podcast, any more questions for Daisy, us, you name it.
Yep.
Send them in.
Yep. Daisy's going to give me her mobile number so I can keep her informed about what's going on with Bodhi if she responds to this the text that I sent during the podcast. You can also hit us up on Instagram. I'm at Cameron Daddo.
I'm at Ali Daddo.
Yep. And we have our Facebook page as well, Separate Bathrooms. Till next time, take good care.
Thanks for listening.